Hi everyone, I see a lot of people joining, so we are starting this webinar. On behalf of CEER, I'm very happy to welcome everyone to this webinar on the integration of biomethane into Europe's gas markets. This is the first of a series of webinars that CEER will start to implement and organize all along, 2025, but especially in 2026. We believe that CEER's position papers and production is worth being discussed in the EU policy debates, and so we're very happy to kickstart with this great debate on biomethane. So yeah, a few rules of housekeeping while we are having people joining this webinar. So again, welcome everyone. This webinar is scheduled to last for an hour. We'll start with a short introduction by our CEER Vice President and Gas Working Group Chair, Pedro Verdelho. And then we'll have a presentation of the report that we are here for by Marcus Krug from E-Control and representing CEER. And then very importantly, stakeholders' reaction by Alexander Dussold from DG ENER and Joanna Appleton from GD Forest, or representing GD Forest and Fluin. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Pedro Verdelho to kick off with introductory remarks. Thank you. Pedro, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Rafael, and good afternoon to you all. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this CEER webinar on enabling biomethane integration in Europe's gas markets. Today's webinar follows the publication of CEER new report on National Authorities' reflections on enabling the injection and access to the wholesale market of biomethane, which was prepared by our regulatory gas strategy work stream within CEER's gas working group. My first word is, of course, of thanks to the drafters of this important report, represented in this webinar by Marcus Krug, co-chair of our RGS work stream, for the quality and timeliness of their analysis. As we know, increasing the uptake of renewable and low-carbon gases will contribute greatly to the decarbonization of European gas markets and also to security of supply. As we can produce these gases locally, we can reduce our dependencies on global LNG markets and pipeline imports from outside the EU. However, questions of affordability and competitiveness are still major issues to overcome, especially for hydrogen when we are talking about decarbonization of gas sector, which will still remains a very expensive technology. So I'm talking about hydrogen. And this is the opportunity for biomethane. Indeed, it is a quick and no regrets option. Biomethane will for sure play a crucial role in bridging the gap on the path to full decarbonization of the gas sector. It has plenty of advantages: endogenous production, circularity, utilization of the same infrastructures as natural gas. It also offers has important challenges, such as gathering centralized production and ensuring gas quality. The decarbonization package has offered us important legislative instruments to deal with these challenges and seize these opportunities. However, as the report shows, many questions remain in the implementation of this package and for the development of national regulatory frameworks that remove barriers for the entry of biomethane into our gas sectors. The analysis in this report offers many and valuable insights into these questions. Before giving the floor to Marcus for the presentation of the report, I would also like to thank Alexander Dussold from the European Commission and Joanna Appleton from Gas Distributors for Sustainability for their availability to be here today to discuss these important issues. So thank you very much, Alexander and Joanna. I would also like to thank Rafael and Ilse and through them all of the CEER Secretariat for the organization of this important webinar. I wish you all a productive and thought-provoking webinar. So thank you very much. And I pass the floor to Marcus. Marcus, please.
Yeah, Marcus, you can jump right in. Maybe I'll say just one thing about the Q&A. There will be a space for questions from the public once all the presentations are done. However, if there is any clarification question or anything that wasn't really clear during one presentation, please feel free to drop your question in the Q&A, and we'll try to address it just at the end of each presentation. But then if it's more policy question, we'll tackle all of them after the whole presentation, but you can nevertheless put them in the Q&A box already. Marcus, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much, Rafael, and also thank you, Pedro, for the introduction. So I will go straight to the content of the report. As mentioned, we just published it a few weeks ago, and yeah, I just want to give you an overview of. It's called NRAs Reflections on enabling the injection and access to the wholesale market of biomethane. And just let me say, well, we have this workstream within CEER who actually looks into the especially renewable gas topics very much. And we found actually biomethane to be a topic after the adoption of the decarbonization package to be a topic to be looked into first. We have already seen some successful scaling up of biomethane production in some member states. And within our workstream, we also used this opportunity to really exchange experiences between each other. So learning from each other, best practices on maybe what we learned from early implementation. And so this was very fruitful discussions we had also within the regulators community. But now let's go to the report. We focused on 4 areas, which we took out of the decarbonization package. And of course, these are topics which are relevant to regulators, regulatory authorities. So that's sort of within our competences to work on that and to develop the solutions on those topics. And I just listed them here. So we have, of course, the topic of access of biomethane to the wholesale market. That's within the Gas Directive. I will go into more detail later on a bit. Then we have an article in the Gas Directive also on connection fees. So those are connection works and then related fees for connecting production facilities to the network. So there are rules in the package saying, well, this should be sort of supported through the connection fees. There should be some sort of cost sharing mechanisms. So we will have a look at that. And then we have also the topic of tariff discounts for biomethane, or in general for renewable gas and also low carbon gases. But this is in Article 18 of the regulation. So we also have a chapter and some national experiences of how this is already handled in some of the member states. And last but not least, we have some reflections also on the trading of biomethane. This is, of course, a topic which is linked to GOs, guarantees of origin, which are there for disclosure in the Gas Directive, but also, of course, related to the Renewable Energy Directive when it comes to the proof of sustainability and these provisions. So, and it's not a really fully comprehensive work for all the EU member states, but we focused on 9 member states, and sort of what I think some good practices are described in quite a bit of a detail in these chapters. Okay, first, access of biomethane to the wholesale market. Here we looked, this is a topic which is very much related also to the design of the balancing rules and of the entry-exit systems. And of course, in the majority of cases, we know that biomethane is injected at the distribution level, at the low pressure or at lower pressure networks. So the sort of the task is to make this also, of course, accessible to the wholesale market, to the trading. And here we found actually that there are multiple workable models which already exist. And we broadly categorize them into three different concepts which are applied. We saw in a number of member states that we have integrated market areas. So actually, that means that there is an integrated balancing zone which comprises both the transmission and the distribution level, and thereby any volumes, commercially speaking now, any volumes injected at the distribution level are sort of within the balancing portfolio of a shipper and can then also sort of from that portfolio be sort of traded at the virtual trading point. So that's one concept. But there are also other concepts which we found also do the trick. Namely, for example, in Denmark, it's called virtual entry points, where the distribution level injected biomethane can virtually be injected into the transmission level and then be traded. So there is a separation in the balancing, but nonetheless, virtually the biomethane can be sort of accessed and injected to the whole transmission level and then traded. And in France, as you may know, there is the rule of buyer of last resort obligation, which also ensures that biomethane injected at the distribution level via those buyer of last resorts can actually then have indirect access, at least, to the wholesale market. So here we found, okay, different approaches, but not really any obstacles in the access. Second chapter and second area we looked into was the connection costs. Those are, as I mentioned, you see it on the picture here, the mainly pipelines, but also metering facilities, compressors, maybe for connecting biomethane plants, but also enabling the injection then into the network. And here we found actually that those cost sharing models are actually applied already in most of the member states that we looked into. But of course, they are very, very different. So first we looked at the project specific costs. That means for each biomethane plant, there are certain project specific works necessary. And those are shared between the producer and the network operator, and then ultimately the network users. But there are different degrees or percentages to which this is done. In Denmark and in Portugal, actually, it's the case that the producers cover most of the connection costs. So there is no socialization of those costs. But in a number of other member states, we saw that actually there is cost sharing, and only the producers pay only part of the project specific costs. You see here the list from France, where it's 40-60 with a cap of 600,000 euros. Italy at the DSO level, we have 80% to be paid by the producer, 20% socialized, and so on. So there are quite different logics behind it. I think what's interesting to mention is that this cannot be really seen in isolation, because in a lot of cases there are support mechanisms designed by the member states to support the production of biomethane, and depending on the levels of the support scheme, the cost sharing models also take into account these components. So there is a cross reference there. And then we looked also at the system level reinforcements. Those are reinforcements which cannot be directly attributed to one concrete biomethane plant, but they are more, well, as the name says, system level. They are about reverse flows or meshing of certain network areas, with the aim to ensure that biomethane can be injected sort of throughout the year, with sort of, well, actually ensuring firm capacity can be offered also to the biomethane production injection. And these are usually, what we found is usually covered fully by the network operators, because it's hard to really attribute them or partially to specific projects. The penultimate point here on the slide is a very, very important one, because this is, I think, a very important tool for transparency. Namely, we saw in a number of member states mapping tools. So network operators providing maps of the network with sort of where areas are marked where biomethane can easily be already sort of connected and injected to the network. So there's usually green areas, but also areas where maybe the network is not yet ready to connect biomethane facilities, maybe due to pressure levels or not enough uptake during the summertime. So this gives a lot of useful information, we think, to potential biomethane producers, also to where they can connect and how long it may take to be connected, because at some locations network upgrades are necessary before. And so this is a very important tool, we find, to have transparency and to guide a little bit also optimal injection points from the network perspective. Yeah, and last but not least, we also say, well, shared connection points also, of course, I think they can really be a win-win situation, because they can save costs both for the biomethane producers when sharing certain facilities, for example, for upgrading, but also, of course, on the network side for just having one injection point instead of several. So these are concepts which we think should be also looked into wherever possible. Of course, there needs to be a sort of geographic proximity to enable this. Then we go to the next point, which are on tariff discounts. And there, there are different types of points where discounts should be foreseen. On the one hand, they are for interconnection points. This is in Article 18 of the gas regulation. And here we actually found, and you see it on the map, here we actually did together with ACEER a more comprehensive survey among NRAs. But here the picture shows that actually a lot of NRAs have taken derogation decisions so far. So meaning that the tariff discounts are not applied at interconnection points. And this is there are criteria for that. Most of them have to do with advanced rollout, but also the existence of alternative support schemes, sort of saying that the tariffs are maybe not the best suited tools to further support biomethane, but alternative support schemes are in place and they should work. But also we have seen that there are a lot of implementation challenges there, because there is this the proof that this is really renewable gas. This needs to be demonstrated to the TSOs, and TSOs, I think this is still not yet fully operational, so there are complexities when really checking whether this is renewable gas or not and fulfills the proof of sustainability criteria foreseen. So this is ongoing, but the map shows that we have mainly derogations on that category of points. But on the other hand, so when we look at the biomethane entry points, so here again the focus is at the DSO level, we actually see that tariff discounts are applied. They are in Austria and the Czech Republic, for example, we see that they are very low. They're not zero, so not 100% discount, but still very low compared to, I would say, conventional gas production. In a number of countries like Latvia, Portugal, Italy, there is even 100% discount. And in Denmark and France, there is no discount. But again, here there is a relationship to the national support schemes, which are, I think, working well, and sort of also sort of these tariffs could then be sort of paid for with the support that biomethane producers get. So here the result is that we see a fragmented application of tariff discounts, and but it's, again, as I said, subject to the different stages of biomethane sector development in the different member states, and also whether or not alternative support schemes are already there or not. Yeah, and last but not least, we have looked at the trading of biomethane, not into very much detail, but I think the main point is that we have different certification schemes. Of course, we know from electricity, we have GOs, which are there for the disclosure towards end customers. But more importantly now, I think, are the proof of sustainability for compliance with targets. And yeah, as I mentioned before here, I think that we also have different stages of implementation. The main, I think what's really important is, because we want to ensure also for biomethane and for renewable and low carbon gases to have really a European market. And we think that we should really have a good look towards that. We do not come to a situation where we have two national solutions, meaning that maybe only domestic supply should go to domestic consumption. I think the European market has the advantage of being a big market, and we have potential for biomethane within the EU, and the most efficient setup would be, again, with the internal energy market, to allow for biomethane production in the EU to be met with sort of those consumers who value it the most, sort of with the highest willingness to pay. And this is, I think, the most efficient design for Europe. So I think also here we should look for solutions which, of course, do the trick in decarbonization. So we need the decarbonization targets to be met, but also we want to keep functioning an EU internal market for renewable gases. So that's the challenge. Okay, so with this, I say thank you, and I give back to Raphael for the further discussion.
Thank you, Marcus. Right on time. I really appreciate your timekeeping and great presentation. I think this is very useful, and also I think your last slide really puts down the real main questions and policy, but also political questions about biomethane, right? About decarbonization, about local use and local production, but also how do we actually create a market, and what is the tension between that. So that's very useful. I'll just since we're really on time, just use this question from Laurent Koshegi on lack of reverse flow, because I find this is almost a clarification question, which is basically, would the lack of reverse flow pose an issue for integrating biomethane into DSO, for example, in Romania? I don't know if you have any insights on that. And if not, we can also do a bit of crowdsourcing. But any reaction to this question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more a topic for really ensuring firm entry capacity. So this there needs to be this reverse compression to really allow for injection also during summertime when there is low offtake in parts of the network. So I think this is important, yeah, and I think this is also an obligation to ensure or to allow this, yeah. So this is a topic, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I think we might also have some Romanian colleagues that could probably chime in on that. But just to continue on this very good run of presentation, I will now give the floor to Alexander Dussolt to give the perspective from the Commission and from DG ENER. Alex, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting the European Commission to the webinar on the uptake of biomethane. I work in the internal energy market unit in DG ENER in the gas team. And yeah, first of all, I would like to thank Marcus and the CEER team for this report and this webinar. The Gas Directive requires member states to provide an enabling regulatory framework for biomethane production facilities. And I really think this report gives a great overview of how such an enabling framework can actually be created. Marcus already introduced the key elements of the regulation in this respect. So today I'd like to take a step back and give a bit of background on the gas package, then react on the paper, and finally provide some outlook on the ongoing work in the Commission on promoting biomethane. Yeah, so the Gas Directive and the gas regulation were revised as part of the Fit for 55 package. Then it was called the Hydrogen and Decarbonized Gas Market Package. And the Fit for 55 package had the general target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030. So yeah, this 2030 target necessitates to decarbonize the gas sector, and that includes reducing fossil fuels, fossil gas, but also to ramp up renewable gases, including hydrogen and biomethane. Also, the gas package contains an indicative target for biomethane of 35 billion cubic meters by 2030, which shall underline the importance of biomethane and also to provide some guidance to producers and consumers. It's an indicative target, so it's not a binding one, but still it shall help the uptake of biomethane. Yeah, and basically beneath the elements that we are talking about today, the gas package includes also further relevant elements for the uptake of renewable gases. So the internal market joules in general, also network planning is very important, the provisions for consumers, the energy platforms that we hear about later as well, and security of supply. And important to note is that the gas regulation already applied since 5th February 2025. However, the gas directive is still to be transposed by summer 26. So some of the provisions already applied today. So the access of biomethane to wholesale the tariff discounts already applied today, but other elements, so the access of biomethane to wholesale markets, connection fees, and the trading of biomethane, that are provisions that will be applied as of the summer. Therefore, I think it's also a really great report to see that some member states are already in the early implementation and trying to implement the requirements. And this report really helps the others to learn from this. Therefore, I'm coming now to the second part on the reaction to the paper. So we really high value the work done by CEER. It, as just mentioned, it helps the transposition and the implementation of the gas package. Yeah, we can learn from those early movers and help the others to choose their ideal market design. So I think from the overview, we also see that there are different packages, so to say, that are suited to different member states and maybe their individual needs. So this is a nice toolbox, so to say, to see what elements have worked well in which conditions and what could work well in a specific member state's situation. Yeah, and as said, this is quite an early report, I would say, and we would be very happy to see that this work here continues. An update once all the packages applicable could be very interesting to see how how it is done by all the member states, and potentially also then regular updates or regular data updates, so to say, to keep this alive and yeah, identify best practices and help each other with the implementation. Then yeah, I don't have specific comments on the four chapters. I think they're all really valuable. We just thought, okay, maybe actually we could maybe add some further elements to this questionnaire on which this was based. And I'm sure that some of the stakeholders here in the room also have ideas what would be relevant and interesting. So potentially this could be complemented for the future. One of those elements we thought of was, are there any obstacles in the member states which should be looked at? What could help overcoming some barriers? Also, like the duration for getting grid access and getting the connections could be very interesting to see. And yeah, this would then also help us to see what works well in the gas package and where do member states maybe need more help in the implementation, and where are things that need to be clarified in the future. So thirdly, I'd like to give also some outlook or insight into what else the Commission is planning on promoting biomethane. Yeah, as Markus already touched upon, the Union database is one of these elements that we are working on. It has been established and put in operation actually by the colleagues However, we are still working with the member states to fully transpose the Renewables Directive and then also to connect their national platforms to the Union database to make this all workable and really enable then the European internal market for biomethane. Furthermore, the colleagues are working on a biomethane platform. So the Union database is more for the guarantees of origin. The biomethane platform then shall bring together producers and consumers of biomethane. So it's a bit similar to aggregate EU for natural gas, where we are aggregating demand and trying to find suppliers. So similar here, we try to match buyers and suppliers, but also provide regulatory information and information for investments in the individual member states and for investors. So to have a bit of a one-stop shop for finding buyer sellers, but also for taking decisions for new investments. The public has already been consulted on this, and the colleagues are planning to go live with this in Q2, Q3 2026. And finally, colleagues are also working on a tripartite contract for biomethane. You've heard of that from the Affordable Energy Action Plan. There's a measure on supporting diversification by demand aggregation and better use of infrastructure. And the concept aims to bring together the public sector with energy producers and energy consumers to counteract high energy prices and market uncertainty. So these are the three elements that we try to or we are doing to promote biomethane. So to conclude here, the uptake of biomethane is very important for reaching the 2030 targets. And this work from CEER is very helpful for member states and also for us for the implementation of the package and to find the best solutions. As the biomethane uptake goes together with an overall decrease in gas consumption, there are further elements that also need to be considered, and this may affect gas flows, and therefore network planning is also an important aspect for the uptake of biomethane. On the one side, we need the European national planning and also planning on the distribution level. So for those planning and how those networks evolve in the future is also an important factor for deciding on where to invest in new biomethane generation. As Markus presented before, those mapping tools are already implemented by some member states, and that goes well together. And and I think we before heard also a bit about that the molecules should reach those consumers who have the highest willingness to pay, the highest need. I think this is an important element which is mirrored in the tools that we are proposing with the biomethane platform, that those who are really in need of the green molecules also get the access to it. And I think this is also a question which similarly evolved on hydrogen, that those sectors that need gases and have little alternative decarbonization options, they should get the access to the green gases. And so that's also a bit of a planning question on how to make this work in theory, on paper, and in the physical situation. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the next presentation and the upcoming discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Very interesting presentation. Very interesting, this idea of the platform. I think Aggregate EU was kind of a good success, and it's interesting to see the Commission building on this initiative. You talked about the impact on network planning and basically network management. And this is a perfect segue to our next speaker, Joanna Appleton from the Gas Distributor for Sustainability. So really the distribution system, how the network deals with that, and basically how this is also seen by this part of the industry. So Joanna, please take the floor.
Thank you, Rafael. Let me just share my presentation with you. So I think you already seeing the scene.
We're full
Right,
screen.
thank you.
This is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to contribute to today's discussion. My name is Joanna Appleton. I'm Head of Risk, Internal Control, ESG, and Institutional Affairs and European Affairs at FLOEN. And I will be speaking today on behalf of Gas Distributors for Sustainability, GD4S, to provide a DSO perspective on the main findings of the report. So let me begin by presenting GD4S. So GD4S is a European association representing the leading gas distribution system operators from 9 EU members and the UK. We operate almost 930,000 kilometers of networks and supply over 60 million customers, representing 49% of the EU and UK gas market. We maintain, develop, and operate gas distribution network in safety to distribute natural and renewable gases to home, businesses, and communities. Just a few words on my side as well from FLOEN Energies. So FLOEN is proud to be one of the founding members of GD4S. We are the largest gas distributor in Portugal. We serve over 1,130,000 customers and manage 9 of the 11 distribution operators in the country. Our network is one of the most modern in Europe, with an average age of 18 years, and is almost entirely made of polyethylene. So this makes us exceptionally well positioned to support Portugal's renewable gas scale-up, particularly biomethane. Now, I'd like to make a few reflections on the CEER reports. What it offers is actually a timely overview of how member states are implementing the hydrogen and the gas decarbonization package, showing a clear progress, including growing support mechanisms, more effective tariff structures, and step towards harmonized sustainability certification and connection cost models. At the same time, it confirms the main challenges we see on the ground as DSOs: slow permitting, high upfront costs, and fragmented national rules, all of which create market irregularities unless a greater alignment is achieved. So from a DSO perspective, and from GD4S perspective, the study reinforces a crucial point. DSOs are key enablers of biomethane integration. As most biomethane is injected at the distribution level, as already mentioned here, DSOs are responsible for adapting the system and planning infrastructure, managing connection requests and allocating costs, and facilitating market access through coordination with TSOs. So across Europe, the different members already carry out essential tasks. We plan grid capacity to ensure safe and timely connections. We digitalize networks so producers can identify optimal injection points, and we cooperate closely with TSOs, including on reverse flow solutions. In short, the biomethane rollout depends on strong, well-equipped distribution networks. This role must be recognized and supported within the regulatory framework. Looking a little bit on what we have done in Portugal, let me just give you some context. In 2023, FLOEN worked with Roland Berger and conducted a study on the future of Portugal's gas distribution grids, and confirmed that the country has the conditions for a fair and balanced energy transition. Renewable gases, especially biomethane, stands out as a sustainable, cost-efficient, and quickly deployable solution due to existing infrastructure, mature technologies, and abundant waste resources. However, Portugal's potential remains largely untapped. To address this, recently, the Portuguese gas DSOs commissioned a new study to identify the regulatory incentives that enable rapid biomethane growth in countries such as Denmark, France, and Italy, and to define the measures needed for Portugal to kickstart its own market and meet the Biomethane Action Plan goal, which is quite ambitious, and where biomethane would account for 9% of gas consumption in Portugal by 2030. The current state is closely to zero. So as you can see, it's a very ambitious target. So the study concluded as main 4 conclusions that I would stand out. First of all, that biomethane is emerging as a central decarbonization tool in Europe, largely thanks to well-designed support schemes. Denmark, France, and Italy stand out to ambitious biomethane targets and effective regulatory measures that have supported the market. For once, Denmark's biomethane sector expanded rapidly following the introduction of a feed-in premium model and a competitive tendering. France saw strong expansion after revising feed-in tariffs and is now moving towards a more market-based support. Italy's 2022 biomethane decree has reshaped the supply side incentives to boost production, with additional incentives under discussion. On supply side incentives, we see that they remain essential in early market stages. Support mechanisms such as cost sharing, feed-in premiums, contracts for difference have played very relevant roles, while feed-in tariffs are also very effective for small installations. CapEx support is very important as well, particularly for urban waste projects. Demand side measures also are increasingly relevant to accelerate the uptake. Mandates are pushing suppliers and consumers to include minimum biomethane shares. Tax incentives also play a complementary role. And in terms of, finally, implications for Portugal, we need to strengthen energy dependence and support decarbonization, and we urgently need a competitive and stable incentive mechanism. So just to have also considering all of this and the study we have done with the several countries that are moving forward, establishing a robust biomethane mechanism and market, we analyzed what would be the regulatory incentives that should be implemented to accelerate biomethane development in Portugal. So on the supply side, the study clearly identifies the cost-sharing mechanism, and a 2080 cost-sharing model between producers and DSOs can significantly reduce entry barriers and encourage collaboration during project development. Secondly, CapEx support. Providing up to 60% CapEx support for producers is essential in early market stages, helping to reduce reliance on feed-in tariffs and encouraging investors to act quickly. Tenders, competitive tenders tailored to larger scale plants can drive cost-efficient development and ensure that most competitive projects move forward first. And also, fourth, feed-in tariffs for small producers remain crucial, offering predictable revenue and ensuring accessibility. Fifth, and extremely relevant as well, is the need to simplify administrative mechanisms and reduce bureaucratic hurdles to accelerate permitting. On the demand side, the study highlights the need for a biomethane consumption mandate, for instance, requiring suppliers to meet 50% of the national biomethane target by 2030, equivalent to around 1.4 terawatt per year. Clear penalties for non-compliance are essential to ensure timely delivery. Finally, the creation of a centralized registry for guarantees of origin and proof of sustainability, as already mentioned here in this session, fully aligned with European systems, will support market transparency and credibility. Together, these measures provide a coherent framework capable of unlocking biomethane potential. And these measures, as already mentioned as well, should not be seen isolated, but rather in a jointly matter, especially when we consider the ambitious target that Portugal has and the preliminary stage where the market for biomethane is currently in Portugal. Viewed together, the CEER analysis and fluent assessment send very similar messages. They both highlight the key role of DSOs, the risks of fragmented national rules, the need for balanced supply and demand side incentives supported by long-term regulatory stability. They also stress that better harmonization on gas quality, certification, and cross-border rules are essential to build an efficient and integrated European biomethane market. So let me conclude with some key recommendations in in looking at the European ambition and the tools that we have to scale biomethane rapidly, we need now coherent implementation and support for the actors who make injection possible on the ground, and especially the DSOs. So GD4S calls for several priority measures. On the one side, a binding EU biomethane production target to provide long-term visibility. Also, a stable and predictable support scheme to secure investment. Harmonized gas quality standards and clear injection rules to reduce complexity and delays. We also call for cost socialization and transparent financing models to create for grid reinforcement and reverse flow needs. Streamlining permitting and faster regulatory approval to accelerate project timelines is also key, as well as integrated planning with TSOs and detailed capacity maps, guiding producers towards the best connection points. Let me conclude to say that Europe can scale biomethane quickly, but the success depends on coordinated action and recognition of the crucial role played by DSOs. With clear rules, harmonized standards, and stable incentives, biomethane can become a true pillar of the EU decarbonization strategy. So thank you very much. I look forward for the discussion and happy to continue this conversation beyond today's session.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for this comprehensive presentation. I think it's really interesting to see also your perspective. While you were speaking, so I don't know if it's related to your presentation, but there were a lot of questions popping into the Q&A box. So I will select a few of those because we have around 10 minutes for Q&A, but not that much. For those which question I do not select, we'll try also to gather feedback from the participants and publish the response to this question afterwards. So if you're not tackled now, don't worry, we will also publish some kind of a small response to that. I will just pick one question that arrived a bit earlier, but I think it's quite interesting. This is a question, it's a long question about Germany, but basically, I think the participant is trying to say, okay, the biomethane should go where the market pays the most, but the current rules sometimes create distortion. And the example was in Germany, where German producers face disadvantage because subsidized biomethane from neighboring country is traded into Germany. And there is also the question of double counting, because then you can also count that renewable gas in your renewable targets. So I don't know if Marcus or Alex, you want to answer this question, and if that was clear to you, and if not, I can repeat it. Yeah, Marcus, do you want to have a shot at this?
Yeah. So sorry, I didn't read exactly the question, but this is exactly what we meant, or I meant with the last slide that I had. So it's this the two goals that we have, of course, decarbonization, but with biomethane sort of counting where the demand takes place. So of course we have this issue of subsidizing production in one member state, but maybe the consumption takes place in another country, and that's fine. But I think there we need to really make sure that there are no barriers implemented to really allow this cross-border trading then and really moving of the biomethane to where it's valued the most. And so there we see, but this is less probably of an issue for regulators, because there are usually design elements in the whole certification, additional requirements, and so on. So I think this should be also looked at, actually, to ensure a European market.
Thank you, Marcus. Maybe passing the floor to Alex on this, on how the Commission sees these issues.
Yeah, so on the first part of the question, yeah, as Marcus said, it can be some countries give the subsidy, then other countries use the GO. I mean, member states are free to choose their energy mix, and they're also free to choose their subsidies. It is important that we have that we're fully implementing the internal European market. So this is of course happening, and I think we have seen this in the past on the electricity sector similarly. Like Germany also paid a lot for renewable subsidies in electricity, and many of those kilowatt hours were exported in the end. I mean, that is fine. I think also like comparing it to electricity, maybe the biomethane sector is a bit more nascent, or the electricity sector now a bit more evolved. So maybe actually there is some learnings you can make across the sectors, but also it may be different, and then it's good to try out different types of subsidies and support schemes, and then over time, when it's getting more mature, to identify those that are the most efficient and have the least biases, so to say, and then adjust as needed. And yeah, also this double counting issue was mentioned, and I think this is clearly the issue that the Commission is now active with member states to sort out. And I think once this is solved, then also the Union database will be also used, not only operational, but then it will also be used. So these are things to be sorted out, and the colleagues are working with member states to finalize that.
Thank you, Alex. That's a very useful answer. Maybe I'll move to a question that was asked also during Joanna's presentation about the penalties that you had on slide 6. So not need to re-show your slide, I think, but there was a question on whether you could elaborate on the penalties, and I think there was something else for market growth. That's how this person precised their question. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Jonna?
Yeah, I mean, the penalties are not the key issue here. We wanted to have demand side incentives so that we could establish a mandatory compliance target for biomethane, and at least to allow to accelerate the integration of biomethane in terms of consumption. What we don't have any much more details in terms of penalties, but it's just to ensure a timely delivery, so that we can have a support for the integration of biomethane in the consumption side. But I mean, I think the main issue was more to support the demand side and not having only supply side mechanisms. But if you just have the penalty is just for you to obey with the percentage required. That's it. But I don't have much more details on that.
Thank you. Maybe just to build up on that, because there was another question during your presentation regarding the impact of ETS 2.0 on the demand, especially in Portugal. And this is quite an interesting question, right? Because we're expecting this ETS to come in and kick in on this type of sectors and demand. So is it something you already have modeled, or what's your expectation regarding this?
I mean, this is something that we should aim for. We don't have it. I think it will immediately lead to an increase in terms of consumption. I mean, of interest towards this solution. The ETS will probably increase the energy and the fuel cost for the consumers, and that can be a significant burden for the low and middle income households. And as we know, there is a problem around energy poverty in Portugal, a significant problem. And so this is something that we should be very careful in the implementation of such instruments. The costs. I mean, and I think that the Pedro Verdel can also comment on that. But we do have a significant problem in terms of energy poverty in Portugal, and we need to make energy as most affordable as possible in terms of the several possibilities that consumers have, and implementing such measures that will immediately increase energy costs must be done very carefully.
Thank you, Joanna. Yeah, that's very useful to have your perspective on that. We are nearing the end of this webinar, so I'll just close with a few questions that I have. But if I could ask the participants to reply quite quickly, and then we will see if we want to expand on that and send to all the participants of this webinar, I would say, expanded answers to those questions. So maybe a quick question to Alex on the biomethane demand, supply, and aggregation. When will this start? I think, is it in the EU energy and raw materials platform? But mainly, I think this is the question of timeline.
Yeah, so the biomethane platform next summer, basically, Q2, Q3, 2026 is foreseen.
Okay, thanks. That's a good and fast way to implement it, and a quick response for you. That's really appreciated. Maybe a question for Marcus, but Alex, you might also be ready to answer that about tripartite contracts and opportunity for this. Is it something, Marcus, that we saw in the report, or do you have any thoughts on this?
No, we didn't cover that, so maybe I could pass it on to Alex. Yeah.
Alex, any thoughts on these type of contracts?
So as I understood, if it's the same question, then I think this tripartite contract is more of about to create a more positive framework, but not about the individual contracts. So for individual contracts would be more the biomethane platform, where you match supplier with the consumer. And the tripartite contract would be more on a national level or on the European level to have more industry working together with the consumers and creating an enabling framework from that perspective. And on the one side European, but also national level, to look into where are barriers, what has to be solved on the framework, but not creating individual contracts. That would be the biomethane platform to support.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, that's also very, very good to know. I'll close with one last question, which is a question for Pedro and Marcus, but also I'm answering. There was a question about whether CEER will publish a report about syngas or synthetic gas integration. I don't think it's in the pipeline yet, but Marcus or Pedro, feel free to complement.
Yeah. No, of course, I think what we have in the work program is to follow up, as also Alex said, on the implementation of the package. So that's on our agenda, and I think there were a lot of good points raised also today. So I think we are still there to refine exactly what points we can focus on. But I think, yeah, for sure, this work is going on. As you say, we don't have anything specific now on syngas foreseen, but we will sort of pick up the most relevant topics for the future work.
Yeah,
I can add.
I can add that. Well, we see that biomethane is really an unregulated option. It can fill the gap between other energy carriers, synthetic gases, hydrogen, which are, taking into account the current costs, are solutions that came with a much higher cost. So we have to build up on and ramp up this biomethane, which is the impact on is minimized. The impact on the gas sector is minimized in terms of it's methane. The origin is bio, but it's the same molecule. We can inject it without reduce interoperability issues in the current gas grids, and we have to develop everything in order to reduce all the entry barriers that may be faced by these new technologies, and also ensure a non-discriminatory approach between the decarbonization of the several energy carriers, between, for instance, electricity and gas. And so here the goals are quite relevant in order to the harmonization of the guarantees of origin and I think in the electricity sector we are ahead compared to the gas sector in terms of the use of the guarantees of origin. It's more complex in the gas sector because we had the complexity of the proof of sustainability. So it's much more complex to enable that in the to enable the monetization of these technologies, of the external benefits that they provide to our society. Is more difficult to do that in the gas sector, but we have to do it in order to again to reduce all the entry barriers of these technologies, decarbonized technologies on the gas. It's what we are doing. And yeah, I think our action plan foresees for the next year a priority in terms of those topics in order to fill the gap between these more complex technologies to decarbonize the gas that will come later on and the current situation. And biomethane is really the gas that, without no regrets, may contribute to decarbonization of the gas sector. We have to know that it is finite. It's not, it has a, because it's related to the treatment of our wastes. So it has a finitude there, but really can fill the gap at the minimizing costs and ensure affordability for our consumers. I think we have to finish. We are 2 minutes delay. Rafael, please.
Thank you, Pedro, and thank you for this. This is a very nice way to wrap up, actually, our work on this, the need to decarbonize, but also the need to discuss this on the market. So I want to thank every participant, but also everyone who joined this webinar today. This was a great discussion. Thank you for this. Just want to recall two things. This is a part of the webinar series. So this was the first one. We'll have our next one in January about the NRA, so the regulators' oversight on grid development. I think this is also going to be a very topical issue because we are expecting the grids package next week. And we will also have a webinar on regulatory frameworks reports, so our benchmarking reports probably in February. So you are absolutely invited to join. Just for the next steps, two things. We would really value your feedback. So whoever is we still have a number of participants there. We have a QR code in this slide. If you scan it, you will have a feedback questionnaire. Very easy, just a few questions just to know and be able to address and assess also the usefulness of that webinar. And the second thing is that we will send an email recap of what we discussed, but also the slides that were presented, and we will strive to have questions to a few of the Q&A questions that we were not able to address during the call. So this will also be on our website, on our dedicated webpage, and that's it. With that, I thank everyone for joining, and hope to see you again in a next webinar. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.